all be back together. Do you know, I was thinking, what were we learning about before we went away on holiday? Well, we were looking at Jesus' ministry here on earth, and we were thinking about the people that Jesus taught. Do you remember we talked about how Jesus taught the crowds, he taught individual people, and he also taught his disciples. And we also heard through that time a lot about how Jesus taught by setting a good example. Remember that he said everything Jesus taught is exactly how he lived. He taught by setting a good example. But today we're going to move on to a different way that Jesus taught, because Jesus also taught using something called parables. Now, when I was young, when I was at Sunday school, I learned that a parable is a heavenly story. No, sorry, got it wrong. I didn't learn very well. You'll learn better than me. A parable is an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. And that just means they were stories that Jesus used about everyday things that people understood about. But the things that he said in parables were to help the people understand what he was really trying to say to them when he was teaching them about God and God's love and God's kingdom. So the kinds of stories that Jesus used, a lot of the people around then were farmers. Maybe they sowed seeds and grew crops. Maybe some of them looked after sheep or goats. Some of them were fishermen. And so Jesus told stories about those kinds of things that the people would be able to understand. So today we're going to start off with the parable of the sower.
One day, there was a farmer who had a bucket of seeds. It was planting time. I'm sure he was hoping for a good harvest. As he scattered the seeds, some fell on the path. The birds came along and ate it. So that seed didn't get a chance to grow. No good harvest from that seed. Some other seed fell on rocky ground. Here there was some soil, but among all the rocks there was only a thin layer of soil. The seed seemed to grow very fast, but it didn't have good, deep roots. And so, when the hot sun came, the young plants dried up and withered. Without deep roots, the plants could not survive in that hot sun. No good harvest from those seeds either. Other seeds fell among thorny weeds. There was soil, and the seeds grew into plants, but the weeds also grew. In fact, the weeds grew and choked good plants. Again, no good harvest from those seeds. But some seeds fell onto good ground, good, deep, rich soil. These seeds grew well with good, deep roots. They became strong, healthy plants, and in time they produced a very good harvest.
The disciples asked Jesus why he used these kinds of stories. And Jesus said this. He said, sometimes people listen, but they don't understand. And he said, sometimes they look, but they don't learn. It's like they don't hear with their ears. And it's like they don't see with their eyes. So Jesus went on to explain.
He said, the seed that fell on the path is like someone who hears the teaching about God and his kingdom, but doesn't understand it. The evil one comes along and steals the seed that was planted. The seed that fell on rocky ground is like someone who hears the word and quickly accepts it with joy on the outside, But the teaching does not go deep into their hearts, and so that person only keeps it for a short time. When trouble comes along, he gives up. And the seed that fell among thorns and weeds is like a person who hears and accepts God's word, but then they let problems and worries overcome them, or they get distracted with the things of the world that become more important to them, like having lots of nice things, or having a good time with their friends. These things are more important, and so the good seed doesn't get a chance to grow strong. But the seed that fell onto good ground, that's like a person who hears God's word and tries hard to understand it. They grow and they learn more. What they learn, they keep in their hearts. They grow strong and healthy and eventually produce a good harvest. Then they tell others about God, planting new seed to grow and give yet another good harvest.
That was the parable of the sower. And Jesus said this too. He said, "He who has an ear, let him hear." In Gordon's case, him with half an ear. But seriously, Jesus said, "He who has an ear, let him hear." And he meant use your ears to hear, but also listen with your heart too. We come along to kids' church every week. We listen with our ears, but we also need to listen with our hearts. And we might not understand everything, but as we grow up, we try to understand. But we need to remember the things that we've learned, keep them in our hearts, so that we can think about the way after we go home from kids' church. Keep those things in your heart so that you always have them there and think about them. And these things that we hear in kids' church, they will help us to grow into strong, healthy Christians if we also make sure that our hearts are like the good ground, ready to take those seeds and ready to listen and understand and let the seeds deep rooted into our hearts. Then we can plant some seeds of our own and telling others about God's love too. And then that will be producing yet another harvest for God. Now, we're going to sing. And we're going to sing, wait for the picture to come up. Yes, good news, Christ died for me. The good news is what we've been talking about. The good news that Christ died. And that's what we need to remember for ourselves, but also to spread that word to other people. So this song doesn't have much actions in it, but you might remember that little word near the end there, extra. That's when you really need to shout. I know you've been told to be quiet this morning, be good, sit nice, listen, all the rest of it. When it comes to extra, we're going to shout. Right?
Good news, Christ died for me. Good news.
Yes, please have a little bit.
Christ died for me. Good news. Saved by me. Good news. I'm saved eternally. That's wonderful. Excellent.
Is there anybody singing? I know it's a long time.
I'm singing.
Yeah. I know it's a long time since we've sung this, but it's not that hard, okay? I can understand that they have sung it for a while, but everybody knows how to shout, and it's one word. Right? After three. 1, 2, 3. Extra! I didn't say it. I said shout it. 1, 2, 3. Extra!
Good news, Christ died for me. Good news, saved by me. Good news, I'm saved eternally. That's wonderful. Extra!